Okay, I wanted to show you a couple more things for pulling this thing together. So you'll notice on mine I have a rocket ship now. I want to show you a couple of things I've done here. The biggest is that I have actually made this rocket ship in two different angles. So you'll see if I sort of scrub my timeline, we can see that. And it's because I'm going to need it for the second shot when we need the rocket ship from the side and a little further away. So I went ahead and made those, and I'll show you how I did that. I also have imported in some bananas for the alien to be confused by. But to just break this apart so you can see what we have here, I have the base part of the ship, sort of this fuselage part, and you'll notice that it's a single frame, a single drawing. Like it doesn't really change actually in either of these. The camera moves forward a little bit, but the ship doesn't. The flaps, I have two sections in here named flaps. One is on the front, and one is on the foreground, one is on the background, right? And you'll notice that when we go to frame 2, that's a different set of drawings in here. So the flaps that are behind it are those two now, and the flaps that are on the front is this one. And then you'll also see that I have this door right here, and it is really, again, just two drawings, one where it's facing forward, and a second one where I just warped it, moved it over to here. And then finally this ramp, and this ramp is actually just two separate drawings. So I'm going to show you briefly how I did that without having to show you me making this entire ship. I'm going to create a new drawing layer. We'll call this porthole, apply and close. And I'm going to just use my circle drawing tool. I'll go to my rocket and choose my line color here. And I'm just going to make sort of like a little hole in the side of it here. Oh, sorry, where's my porthole layer? Probably going to have to move that above everything here where we can see it. There we go. And I'll just select that, kind of size this up. I want it to kind of be along the side here and kind of narrow. There we go. So I'm going to hit Control C, Control V to get a second one, and then hold Shift to resize this. And I'm going to position this in a way that it has a slightly larger gap on this side than this side. So you'll kind of see that now, and that's actually, I'm doing that intentionally to kind of give us a sort of a feeling of perspective, right? I could even scoot this whole thing over just a little bit more closer to the edge if I wanted to, right? And so now it looks like this edge that's a little further away, we're seeing it at an angle, and maybe it's a little thinner, right? So yeah, so we can kind of fake that just a little bit. So that's my porthole drawing. If I go to the next frame, you'll see that there isn't a drawing at all, right? If I hit F5, I can extend my same drawing to last for two drawings here, or for two exposures. And what I'm going to do is, if I were to change this on drawing 1, right? If I did something like this and moved it over, it changes it on drawing 2 as well, because it is the same drawing just being exposed for 2 frames. So what I'm going to do is go to frame 2, and I'm going to click this button here. And this, what it's going to do is it's going to duplicate that drawing. So now I have those same 2 pieces on another drawing. And you'll notice it kind of on the porthole. Oh, I did that on the ship, not on the porthole. Sorry. There we go. And so now you'll see that the porthole has 2 different drawings, right? And if I change this second one and move it over, now I get this. And what I'm going to do is try to make it seem like this rotates about a quarter of the way around the ship. And because of that, I want to see that perspective change on it. Right? So I'm going to do something like this. Maybe move this a little bit more toward the center, widen it out so we're not seeing it at quite such a perspective. Move it on around here. Oh, I'm going to get both of those. Move those on around just a little bit more. I don't know why it's doing that with both of those. There we go. A little bit more. And so now, as I scrub through there, you'll see it feels like it's sort of turning around with the ship. Now, honestly, that feels like it's maybe a little too much if I'm sort of comparing it to where the door is. So I'll move it back here. So now it feels like a little bit of a rotation. I'm going to go ahead and go to both of those and push those down to the color art layer. I'm going to go ahead and color the frame of those, or the border of both of those. Oh, I haven't pushed that down to the color art. There we go. And so now I have that border on both of them. But for a line art, I actually would like to, actually I'm going to do a different color than that. I chose the wrong color. Let's go ahead and redo that. Yeah, there we go. So, however, for the inside here, I would like it to kind of look like glass. And so I'm going to create a new swatch, and you'll see, you probably saw this already in the door, that I have this gradient happening. It's like a highlight or like a lighter area here going toward a darker area here. And so I'm going to make a new swatch. I'll call this glass. And I'm going to make that glass, for the most part, white. Not completely white. Now you'll see that I can flood that now in my color section as completely white on those two frames. But this glass swatch here, color swatch, if I double click on that, you'll see that by default it's set to solid color. But I can change that to gradient. And if I change that to gradient, I get this range here of two different colors. And what I can do is choose like this first one, and I can make it a different color. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to push that one a little bit more toward the gray. And then I'm just going to click here somewhere and add a second color, make it white, and then choose this one and make it gray as well. And you'll see now that changed it on both of those. Now you can, when you're applying this color, if you're applying it with a paint bucket, where you click the paint bucket will change a little bit of where that highlight is. I thought it would. It definitely does with the radial. Okay, maybe it's because it's already painted. Let me see. Paint bucket and click there. Oh, okay. So let's see if it does it with radial. Yeah, see with radial where you click, it changes where the highlight is. I guess with linear, apparently linear can change it too. So I'm going to go ahead and leave that like that because I'm pretty happy with that. If I really wanted to change where that highlight is, I can also sort of shift it here as well. And so I could make it something like this. I will be honest, I think that white is maybe just a touch too white, so I'm going to pull that down just a little bit. And that gives us a sort of a nice feel of this reflective glass on there, right? Now, throughout most of this, we've talked about these two buttons here, these two flowers, right? We have this gray flower, which is our open GL view. And this is going to be the fastest, like it's very reactionary. And if I can see my animation in real time, but you can tell that it's not the highest quality render, right? It also usually doesn't show many of the lighting or effects elements that we've done. So you notice like the shadows or the shading on Winslow here is not present until I click this flower. And so when I click it, you'll notice I've also done some shading work on the spaceship as well. I got a little bit of a shadow around here, and I'll zoom in here and just let you see that pretty much the same thing I had done with Winslow, when I used this second layer coming out of the ship into this apply peg transform, and then plugged that into the mask of a brightness and contrast and use the peg to adjust it. And what that gives me is this ability to adjust the shadow whenever I want to. So I'm going to do a couple more things, and I'm going to use the ship mostly as my thing that I'm going to be editing. So the first one is I want to show you how to create a drop shadow on this spaceship. So we have our composite node. I'm not sure what this is down here. This is it's our porthole. So let's go and pull that back up there. And so that's plugged into the composite as well. So basically we have all these drawings here. I have this porthole, I have this door, I have the ramp, all of these things. And they're all plugging into this composite node, and it's mixing them into a single image and then sending that single image out through this line here. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually just going to create a second composite node right here and drag it out. And I'm going to hold down Alt and sort of wedge that in there. I do not know why the second one's there. Okay, so I end up with this, right? So I've got all those images going into a composite node. And so the entire spaceship, think of this as the image of the entire spaceship, is coming out of this line. And I just plugged it into this composite node. And I did that so I would be able to do it twice. And so this is going to seem kind of familiar. We're going to again do a apply peg transform here. Control P to get me a peg for that. And I don't know if you've noticed, but I've gone back and renamed some of the others just so I know what is what. And I'm going to plug that into there, plug this into there. And what this will let me do is move my entire spaceship with this peg, the second version of it, right? Now, the big thing in this is that I want the one that I'm able to transform to be actually behind my original one. So I'm going to take this and just move it back here so it's behind it. And I am now going to go in here and just type in shadow. So what this is going to do, this shadow node, is going to take this entire channel coming out of here and turn it into a shadow. So if I hold down Alt and wedge it in there, now I have a shadow of my spaceship, right? And it looks like it looks like they're standing in front of a billboard or something and it's casting a shadow on a flat surface. That's fine. What I really plan to do right now is actually warp this to align it a little bit more with the ground. Now, I guess one of the ways I could do this is possibly rotating it in 3D, but I'm going to just kind of fake this a little bit. First, I'm going to grab my peg and scale that down. And you'll notice it scales toward my pivot point, so the pivot point of the peg. So I'm going to go ahead and put that down here on the ground, just sort of scale this down until it's much, proportionally I want to scale it just vertically, until it's much flatter. And then I can use this skew to skew it in one angle. And of course I kind of had moved it off to the side, so I'll kind of move that back a little bit. And I could even use this to potentially widen it just a little bit. And you're seeing I'm getting a real-time shadow of my spaceship. And if I were to move the ship itself, if I had a peg that moved everything, which I will soon, I'm going to rig this soon, that shadow will move with it, right? It will do proportionally a similar thing. So I can do this with Winslow as well. I'm going to add one of these to Winslow in just a second to give him a drop shadow. What I will show you on this shadow is if I click on this button here, by default, you'll notice it's a little bit softer of a shadow. It's also not particularly dark. If I wanted to make it darker, I could turn this up a little bit more. And on the moon, it probably would be kind of a harsher shadow. There's not a lot of bounce light because there's only really one big thing casting light, and that's usually a planet. And usually the edges of the shadows are a little softer and a lot of the stuff we would see on Earth, right? But on the moon, you maybe would want those to be completely hard. Or, play around with it. You can make it even softer. That's what this radius is doing, is just giving you control of how hard or soft that shadow is. I will show you that similarly, if we wanted Winslow's shadow or even our spaceship's shadow, let's do our spaceship. If we wanted our spaceship's shadow to be a little softer, remember that what is coming out of this is just a duplicate image of the ship's fuselage, right? And then we're just piping that into this brightness and contrast. If I were piping it directly into the composite node, you would see it's just a duplicate of the ship's body, right? So what I can do is I can blur that image. I'll show you one more time here. I'll pipe that into here. I can put a blur in between the ship and the peg transform. And so if I just type in blur, I want to use a Gaussian blur. It's a pretty common one. Hold down Alt and wedge it in there. By default, it's set to 0, so it's not blurry. But if I turn up my blurriness here, my ship images starts to blur, right? So that also means that the alpha, the mask that it is casting, is blurring as well. So if I were to unplug that now, let's see, it's from here, it gives me a softer shadow around the ship. And I can actually go in here on that soft shadow and adjust it to be whatever level of gradient that I would like. Now, I also wanted to show you, like, this is just a shadow isn't always enough, right? So I'm going to do another layer here, another drawing layer. I'm just going to create another drawing layer. We'll call this ship highlight. I think I misspelled that. H-I-G-H. I don't know if that's right. Close that. Where did that go? I thought I created it. There it is. Oh, for some reason I put it underneath ship. So I'm going to unplug that and just have it there by itself. Move this all the way out to the front so I can see it. You'll see right here, ship highlight. And I'm going to do something that seems a little silly. I'm just going to grab my paintbrush here. No, let's do pencil because I want to center line smooth it a little bit. I'm just going to choose the color white. And I'm just going to do a single line down the ship. So that's not very thick, so let's make it a little bit thicker just so we can see it. Just a single line down the ship. Let me make it a little bit more. Drawing with a mouse isn't working very well for me right now. Actually, the other way we could do this is a single line, and then I could just work this. There we go. So, I know that doesn't look like a highlight, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and make sure that this stays in front of my ship, where it's piped into the composite. I want it to be all the way on the front here, right? But I'm going to use the ship's shape to mask it. And what that's going to do is cut out anywhere where it goes outside of the ship. And then from this ship highlight, I am going to apply a blur. Oh, and I'm going to just blur that highlight a little bit. And so automatically it's kind of feeling like a highlight. It's kind of neat, right? Actually, I could probably mask that blur a little bit as well to trim off some of the stuff that's happening there. Right? Now I want to show you one more thing that is pretty nice. If I type blend, we also have a blending node here. And so very similar to Photoshop, this is going to allow us to do stuff like multiply or screen blending. Right? So when I click blending, by default, it's going to be set to normal. But I could change this to multiply. Multiply is not going to work as well, but like screen or overlay. Overlay is looking kind of nice. Hard light. Right now I think I'm leaning toward overlay. And so I have now this single line I drew, and then I blurred it. And so if it's too blurry or too wide, I can always go back here and adjust that and make it a little less, and make that a little sharper. I can change the blending node, and then lastly, I can actually change how visible this is. If we type in Pr2 right here. I believe this is the right one. If I plug this into here and go to my options here, I can adjust how visible this is. And if I want to put this at 80, it'll be a little lighter. If I wanted to put this at like 11, it's going to be fully bright. So I can adjust this to tone that down or raise that up a little bit more. I'm really digging how that's looking right now. Now, little bits at a time, we layered all those things in there, so you may not even really recognize it. So just to show you how much different that looks, if I click here, this is the default of what we're getting.